Good morning. It's Tuesday morning. Today's a big day. We're having a little fellowship dinner for the guys who are involved and the gals that are involved in our homeless ministry over at Rosie Joe's today. And, we're having some prayer with those guys and some of them later on today. This evening is the podcast, the Ozark Gospel Podcast, 7 o'clock on the Ozark Full Gospel Church Facebook page and on their YouTube channel. And then I repost it when it's over on my personal page. We've had a lot of interest in it. We were talking specifically tonight about the resurrection of the body and how Jesus is not only the Savior of the soul, but of the body as well, and that one day this body will be redeemed and glorified. And Job said, I know that my Redeemer liveth, and in the latter days his feet shall stand upon the earth. And though after my skin worms destroy this body, yet in my flesh shall I see God. How does all that work? Well, Paul explains it in chapter 15 of 1 Corinthians, but you don't understand it, and you're not going to understand it until you see it, but it will happen. We finished up chapter 23 yesterday, where the chief captain, Claudius Lysias, delivered Paul the prisoner to Felix, the Roman governor in Judea, and delivering him for Roman justice instead of having him pulled to pieces by the mob of the religious and institutional and ruling class Jews that hated him. We're talking about the chief priest, the high priest and his family, the Herodians, the Sadducees, the Pharisees, the scribes, and the lawyers. Hypocrites! Now, the hypocrites weren't a sect. They were all hypocrites, of course, according to Matthew 23. That's what the Lord calls them. He calls them a den of snakes, you den of vipers. How can you escape the fire of hell? So they were all against. And, of course, the ruling class of the temple and of the state and of Herod's kingdom, all the people that bought and sold everything, the rich people, the people who ran things, they were all trying to murder Paul. Because he was upset in the apple cart because of that way. And that is the way of the cross. Now, chapter 24. We finished 23 yesterday. I can't believe we did it in only 2 days. But as I told you, it's a narrative chapter. And I'm not going to turn a 10 or 15 minute commentary into an hour commentary just because that's the time. Many of you know that there's been chapters where I've spent over a week on the same chapter, sometimes more than that. I mean, we spent a long time on chapter 8 of John. We spent a long time on chapter 16 of John. We spent a long time on chapter 45 of Jeremiah, where Baruch gets his rebuke from the Lord. It's only 5 verses. I think that message was nearly an hour. So it's not the number of verses, it's the action that takes place and hasn't been covered. So I'm not going to waste time, but I'm going to spend time wherever it's necessary. I am feeling better all the time. My voice is still weak. I haven't had a fever since yesterday morning, and it was small because my fevers, as you know, had come back late last week. I didn't feel bad, didn't feel any worse, except when I had the fever, my head bothered me, of course. And there's a lot of reasons I could run a fever. I could run a fever because of this. I could run a fever because of the arthritis. I could run a fever because of the internal problems that I have. who knows which one. I'm not going to jump up and run to the ER every time I run a fever. I'm going to take some Tylenol and it'll go away. If it don't go away, then I'll go to the clinic, okay? The doctor tells me I'm okay. I'm in amazing shape for the shape I'm in. Now, chapter 24 of the Acts of the Apostles. The Acts, chapter 24, beginning in verse 1. Paul has been delivered to Felix. And Felix is going to gather the accusers so that Paul can come meet them face to face. All of them. And it'll be done orderly, according to Roman law. Roman law said a man can't be condemned or even beaten until he has the accusers face to face and the charges are known and he has a chance to defend himself against those charges. Chapter 24, verse 1. And after 5 days, Ananias the high priest descended with the elders and with a certain orator named Tertullus, who informed the governor against Paul. Well, they brought their own high-powered lawyer. That's just like a politician. Bring your own lawyer. I believe don't bring a knife to a gunfight. You need to be prepared, but here it is, overkill. You got the entire temple ruling class, a good section of the secular ruling class in Judea, standing against one man, Paul, of a city in Cilicia called Tarsus, who preaches the way of the cross. He wrote to the Corinthians, chapter 2, verse 2, and I determined not to know anything among you save Jesus Christ and him crucified. That is the way. After 5 days, Ananias the high priest descended with the elders and with a certain orator named Tertullus, who informed the governor against Paul. And when he was called forth, the governor, Felix, he set an order for the trial. Before it started, Tertullus explained to Felix what the charges were. Felix nods. He probably has it all written out before him. In Greek, I would suspect. And when Paul, was called forth, Tertullus began to accuse him, saying, of course, he's talking to Felix, but he's accusing Paul. That's the way that lawyers do. And fancy men, bankers, men with fat bellies and striped pants that will steal the farm away from a poor man, that will take his crops, that will put him and his wife and his children out on the road. Striped pants bankers and lawyers. God will deal with all such that grind the faces of the poor. You make a dime from the misery of the poor, God will deal with you. Fact, there are no exceptions. And when he was called forth, Tertullus began to accuse Paul, saying, seeing that by thee we enjoy great quietness, and that very worthy deeds are done unto this nation by thy providence. Well, he starts out by kissing Felix's butt. That's the way all of these slick, soft-hand, fancy pants people do. I got no time for a guy who can't change his own oil. If he's crippled up, if he knew how, I'll give him credit. God bless you, Kevin. I got no time for a man who ain't had grease on his hands, who ain't been under a car, who hadn't baled hay, who hadn't bucked bales, who don't know the difference between a cow and a pig, who's never stood in the earth and picked up the ground that's been tilled and hold it in your hand and let it sift through your fingers to try to reimagine, even if you're a city boy, as I have become and am now, that connection between you and the land. You hold the ground in your hand, you smell the dirt, you smell the manure, you see the plow. That is what produces a man like this orator Tertullus and these lords of the universe who seem to rule over us now. They have no connection to the land. They eat food they didn't grow. They eat meat they didn't raise. They live in houses they didn't build. They drink from water that they didn't, wells that they didn't dig. There's no connection to the land. It ruins a man. So you have to work to have that connection with the land again. Because what happens is you quit being thankful for the food that you eat by the sweat of your brow. And then you forget God. As the majority, the vast majority of this country, of the world has forgotten God. That it is God who feeds us. That the only thing that stands between us and starvation and utter destruction is less than a foot of topsoil, a very thin layer of topsoil, and the fact that God makes it rain and makes the sun to shine. That is the only reason any of us eats. It's hard to shake hands with a man whose hands are soft. It gives me the willies. It means he's never worked and knows nothing of the land. And when he was called forth, Tertullus began to accuse him, saying, "Seeing that by thee we enjoy great quietness, and these very worthy deeds are done unto this nation by thy providence, we accept it always and in all places, most noble Felix, with all thankfulness." Isn't that right, Kevin? This guy, most noble Felix. You know, he wants Felix to know that, hey, buddy, we're all on the same side, you know. We're ruling the Jews and you're ruling us. We got that in common. Oh, he is a brown noser. You're a wonderful man. You're a beautiful man. Such a manly man. You know, like Putin walking around with his shirt off, riding a horse or something, you know. I mean, it's all of this propaganda and myth making. These guys proud of themselves, right? These rich people that think they can snap their fingers and things are going to be a certain way just because they say so. But, you know, they kill me and they can eat me if they want to, but they can't change my mind. I will be my own man up until the moment of death. I am a servant of the God who lives forever. I am a prophet of the living God before whom I stand and whom I served. And I will not let the voice of a man distract me from that. And I will not believe the lies of this world, no matter how pretty they make them sound on the TV. And you shouldn't either, beloved. Seeing that by thee we enjoy great quietness, and that very worthy deeds are done unto this nation. Yeah, like make you slaves. Very worthy deeds. The rich people always collaborate with the dictators. because the dictator couldn't stay in power if the rich people didn't support him. They're worried about their property and their money, and they don't care about a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. What they got in mind is a government for me, by me, and to me, and all mine, or ours, our class. They amaze me every day, but I shouldn't be amazed because it was going on back when they were trying Paul in front of Felix. The collaborators, the people that were conquered, cooperating with their occupiers. After World War II, we hanged people for that, remember? And when he was called forth, Tertullus began to accuse him, saying, "Seeing that by thee we enjoy great quietness," the collaborator said, "and that very worthy deeds are done unto this nation by thy providence, because you let us have freedom to walk around and behave like men." Good morning, Travis. God love you. We accept it always and in all places. We accept our occupation always and in all places, as long as you keep making us rich. And how did they make him rich? By stealing from the poor. Taxes were collected in Judea by publicans. They would fight for a contract. Let's say good old Zacchaeus, who was delivered from that great sin of being a tax collector in Roman times. He was a collaborator. He was a Jew working for the Romans. No wonder they hated him anyway. But then what he did is the Romans said, "You're going to have to pay us 100 talents. Well, and then whatever Zacchaeus got that was over 100 talents, he kept for himself. So he would charge 120 talents. Maybe he charged 200 talents. Who knows? But because the Romans collected the taxes as occupiers, the people suffered. Because on that pass through that ruling class, they got rich too. Of course, nobody got richer than the Roman occupiers. That's the point of occupying a country, is to steal their wealth and enslave their people. Don't think it can't happen here. Go back and read It Can't Happen Here by Sinclair Lewis, 1935. Incredible book. Notwithstanding, he continues his speech, seeing that old Tertullus, the blowhard, the striped pants lawyer, seeing that by thee we enjoy great quietness, and that very worthy deeds are done unto this nation by thy providence. We accept it always and in all places, most noble Felix, with all thanksgiving. So this murdering Roman, he's most noble, right? Notwithstanding that I be not further tedious unto thee. We don't want to take up too much of your time, Felix. We know you're a busy man. Just kill Paul and it'll all be over. Notwithstanding that I be no further tedious unto thee, I pray thee that thou wouldst hear of us, of thy clemency, a few words. Now, he's already wasted 3 verses in this introduction. I wonder how long it takes to say that. Seeing that by thee we enjoy great quietness, and that very worthy deeds are done unto this nation by thy providence, we accept it always and in all places, most noble Felix, with all thankfulness. Notwithstanding that I be not further tedious unto thee, I pray thee that thou wouldst hear us of thy clemency a few words. That took 27 seconds. Good morning, Adam. He could have left off the introduction if he was interested in saving time for good old Governor Felix. But see what striped pants people say, these rich lords of the universe, these millionaires and billionaires, who, as Larry David once said, got too many pairs of underwear. They always do one thing and say another. He's telling the governor that he wants to save time and that he wants to be brief, but then he vomits out a string of words, and the thing just gets more convoluted than ever. Our would-be overlords never tell the truth, ever, because they want an authoritarian state, and they don't want people like me walking around and saying whatever we want to say, and they'll get rid of the Bible. Good morning, Sheila. Don't depend on the Bible on your phone, because they can change that with a couple of clicks. They could change the verses. They could leave out books. They could leave out verses. Have a hard copy of the King James Bible. Don't rely on anything else like your computer or your phone. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't depend on the internet. Because when they finally shut down on the flow of information, which all tyrants do, all dictators do that, you got to control the information. Read 1984, George Orwell. Ironically written in 48, but it's 1984. We were there in 1984. We're really there now. They got to control the information. The first thing they're going to have to get control of is the Bible, and they've got lots of guys in big churches right now. The devil is using them to tell you not to trust this Bible, not to believe the Old Testament, not to believe John 3:16, not to believe in historic and traditional Christianity, not to believe in the God of the Bible revealed in Jesus Christ. No, they worship another God. They worship a God of their own creation, created in their own image. Get a hard copy of the Bible. Keep it. Learn it. Don't let it go. When they come to your house or come to your farm, hide it. Don't let them take it. If you live long enough, it will happen. I would not lie to you, as I say, unless maybe there was money involved. If I owed you money, I might lie to you and say I would gladly repay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. That I pray thee that thou wouldst hear of us, of thy clemency, a few words. Now here goes Tertullus. For we have found this man, Paul. For we have found this man a pestilent fellow. A pestilent fellow. A pestilence, of course, is a disease that comes across and destroys a land. It might destroy the crops. It might destroy the livestock. It might destroy the people. I think you could describe COVID-19 and everything involved with it as a pestilence. Or maybe not COVID-19. We'll just call it the plague, because I said COVID-19 in a YouTube video one time and they edited it out. They blocked it out. So see, there are certain things you can't say without getting censored. So how long will it be until they censor Jesus as the only begotten Son of the only God there is, that there ever was, or that there ever will be? And the only way that you can know him is through the pages of the Bible where he is revealed as the Son of God. That's the only Lord there is. Now, if they can make it illegal for me to say a word describing a pestilence, they can block me from saying that too one day. And that's why you have to get hard copies and keep them in a safe place. When they come for you, hide it. Maybe you'll be able to get away from them and get back and get it. Don't let them destroy it. The time draweth near. Now is our redemption nearer than when we first believed. For we have found this man, Paul, to be a pestilent fellow. He's a pest. You've heard it. Look at this guy. He's a real pest. That's what I want on my tombstone. Jimmy Harris. He was a pest for Jesus. He was a pest for Jesus. After Daddy got saved, he became a pest for Jesus. He was a contractor. He ordered a book called How to Build an Evangelistic Church. He was active in his church. He helped build a church, both in number and in the physical construction of the church. He was a contractor, and he got people to do stuff for free, and what they wouldn't do for free, he did or paid for himself. And he got it done. And then, after he helped build the church, he wanted to put people in it, but more than that, he wanted to put people into the arms of Jesus. So he had this book written in the early 70s by a Baptist minister named Joe something. I can't remember. Started with a B. I remember seeing the front of the book. It had a picture of a little church on the hill. It says, How to Build an Evangelistic Church. And everyone who came to call on my dad, there were 99.9% men back then, but every person who came to the office to call on my father, when they left, whether he did business with them or not, he gave them that book and invited them to church. That went on for, I guess, 4 years, three or 4 years until he died. He died very young. But I know where he is. He was a pest for Jesus. You couldn't go to my dad's office and sit down without having a conversation about the Lord. My father was a great man. I'm not worthy to carry his briefcase. But yet somehow I am here now telling you about Jesus. But I will see my daddy again because I believe the same thing he did, and I trust the same one he did. For I know whom I have believed, and am persuaded that he is able to keep that which I have committed unto him against that day. For we have found this man to be a pestilent fellow, and a mover of sedition. That's not true at all. But, these lords of the earth, when they are in positions of power, they don't care anything about the truth. They just care about what profit they can make on your back. For we have found this man a pestilent fellow, and a mover of sedition among all the Jews throughout the world, and a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes. And that's true. That's true. He was a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes. And that best describes what Christianity was, at least from the viewpoint of Jerusalem. Now, this was not the case throughout the world that Paul had gone to, throughout Asia, throughout Europe, and the churches that he planted, and the messages that he preached. That was an almost completely Gentile church. But in Jerusalem, where the temple was, where the high priest was, where all these rulers were, where Tertullus was, Jerusalem was the center of the universe, and they didn't know and probably didn't care what was going on anywhere else. Good morning, Susie. God bless you. Good morning, Brother Richard. God bless you. There's so many brothers and sisters watching this morning. We're beginning Paul's first defense before Felix. Well, I guess it would be his only defense publicly before Felix, but they had a long and chatty relationship, we'll come to see. but it was not true. It's true that Paul was a pest. He was a pestilent fellow. That's true, because he never quit talking about Jesus. And a mover of sedition. He was not a mover of sedition among the Jews, but that he was a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes. And that's the way they viewed it in Jerusalem. You see, the Jerusalem church was almost completely Jewish. I mean, they were all Jews. They were either Jews who were born Jews, or they were Jews who had become Jews by conversion. They called those proselytes. And when early in the book of Acts, where it talks about the Greeks in Jerusalem, they're talking about the Jews who had been Gentiles but converted to Judaism, like Dr. Luke, we presume. So it was a sect of Judaism. And it was viewed as a sect of Judaism, and they were called heretics by the ruling class. There was probably the Jewish church in Jerusalem, that church, the Messianic Jews who had accepted Christ, they numbered, some estimates put them as high as 20 to 30,000 people in a city of about 1 million. It was a sect. It was a little piece where everybody was a Jew, except for their Roman occupiers. They may have been a religious Jew, they may have been a racial Jew, but they were all Jews. 20 to 30,000 people is not very many. It was just a little bitty sect, and that's how they saw it. They did not see it as a worldwide belief spread by Paul and Barnabas and Apollos and the others. Good morning, John. I hope things be good in Lake Wade today. Be a good TV program. You ought to start doing it, Pastor. Lake Wade Today. It has a certain ring to it. So we have found this man to be a pestilent fellow. He was a mover of sedition among all the Jews throughout the world. He was not. He never asked anybody to quit being a Jew. He just asked them to believe in Christ. He never tried to uncircumcise the circumcised. And a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes, and he certainly was. I want to be a pest for Jesus. I'd love to be a ringleader for Jesus. I'm a member of that sect. Who also hath gone about to profane the temple, and he didn't. He would never have done that. He was honoring the temple. He was honoring the law of Moses. He had taken a Nazirite vow, which was to have lasted 7 days, and on the seventh day an offering would be given. And some Jews from Asia who knew his face saw him in the temple, and they assumed that he had brought a Gentile into the temple because of, was it Trophimus? Because they had seen him in the town. Yeah, Trophimus, the Ephesian. They had seen him in the town with Paul. But Paul, there's no record of Paul taking any Gentile into the temple. It didn't happen. That's why he circumcised Timothy when he took him to be with him, because his mother was a Jew, but his father was a Gentile. His father was a Greek. So he hadn't been circumcised. But everybody knew this family, and they knew that Timothy, the Jew, had a Gentile father. Well, since Paul was going to take him with him, and they were going to be in synagogues and possibly be in the temple at some point, since he was a Jew, he circumcised him because he was already a Jew anyway. Even though circumcision meant nothing, he was not going to do anything for the Jews to say that he broke the law or caused trouble. And he never did. As I've explained to you many times, Paul, the apostle, never quit being a Jew. He got in trouble because he was being a Jew. He was in the temple when they caught him. Verse 6, he has gone about to profane the temple. He never did. Whom we took and would have judged according to our law. They were going to kill him. Is that judging according to the law? Pull a man to pieces? The chief captain had to save him one time because they were beating him to death. Then they grabbed him again when he was having his first hearing and giving his defense. And the chief captain was afraid they were going to pull him in pieces, so he had to go save him again. And then when he finds out that they're plotting against him for Paul's sister's son, to kill him, that they had bound themselves with a curse, that nobody would eat or drink until they had killed Paul. Good morning, Pastor. God bless you. God bless you, Haroon, from Lehor. You and Sister Susie. God bless you guys. He had to save them from killing him. So what they did, they didn't want to judge him according to the law. They just wanted to murder him. All of these rich people that run things, they're always liars. You can't believe anything they say because they're going to say whatever will put more gold coins in their pocket. They don't care about anything else. They don't care about you. They don't care about your children. Don't care about the roads. Don't care about your house. Don't care about anything. Don't care about your schools. An uneducated, illiterate society is really a good thing for kings, and that's what they want to be. When you have a ruling class, you don't want the population to be very educated. And their disdain for education shows you that. Who also had gone about to profane the temple. He didn't go to profane the temple. Whom we took and would have judged according to our law. Our law. The law of Moses never told them to murder anybody. They could put people to death for certain things, but they had to be judged. They had to be accused. They had to be judged. First by the judges, then by the kings, now by the council, the Sanhedrin. For we have found this man to be a pestilent fellow, a mover of sedition among all the Jews throughout the world, and a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes, who also hath gone about to profane the temple, whom we took and would have judged according to our law. But the chief captain Lysias, Claudius Lysias, remember, came upon us and with great violence took him away out of our heads. He kept you from murdering Paul, you lying bag of bones. Commanding his accusers to come unto thee, by examining of whom thyself mayest take knowledge of all these things, whereof we accuse him. Okay. At first, in verse 1, it said that Ananias came with the elders and with Tertullus. And Tertullus informed the governor against Paul. He gave the governor all the charges. Then the whole court heard Tertullus's oration. All the charges brought against Paul. And we would have handled it ourselves if that mean old chief captain hadn't kept us from murdering him. You see where all this is going? The ruling class, they always blame the righteous when their plans go wrong. See, they can have the greatest plans in the world, but see, when you're focused on your own wealth and your own well-being and don't care about anybody else. It's been said that this was discovered actually and written by the chief psychiatrist working for the occupied army in Germany during the trials of Nuremberg. His name was either Gibbon or Gibson. But he wrote a long history or chronicle of those proceedings against the Germans that had not committed suicide or been killed or escaped, that they were trying, the ones that they were able to catch. And he had concluded in one section of this work that he defined evil as the absence of empathy. It means you can't feel anything for the other man. If he's naked, you don't care. If he's hungry, you don't care. If his children are naked, you don't care. If he's freezing in the dark, you don't care. It's the lack of empathy. It is the absence of empathy among men that describes evil. Now, we know as Christians that we're evil because of our sinful nature. And we're also evil and wicked because of the three forces working upon us all the time: the world, the flesh, and the devil. The flesh we have some control over. I'm in control over the world. I'm in control over the devil, but God does. God even has control over the flesh, that we should abstain and that we should struggle and fight against the lust of the flesh so that we can serve Christ. And we all do that to one degree or another as best we can. And I know that I can do it a lot better. But the ruling class in any society, they don't care. They don't have empathy. They do not care what happens to you. Don't fool yourself into thinking that they do. And the Jews also assented, saying that these things were so. So there's the case against him. There's the case against Paul. The case against Paul is thus. Tertullus outlined it to Felix and his men, his committee, his council, his advisors. Then Tertullus, in an open court, charges Paul in front of the court. And then here is what the charges are, just to refresh your mind. For we have found this man a pestilent fellow and a mover of sedition among all the Jews throughout the world, and a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes, who also hath gone about to profane the temple, whom we took and would have judged according to our law. But the chief captain Lysias came upon us, and with great violence took him away out of our hands, commanding his accusers to come unto thee, by examining of whom thyself mayest take knowledge of all these things whereof we accuse him. And all the Jews also assented, saying that these things were so. Yeah, right on, Tertullus, what you said. Ditto. And we will pick up tomorrow with Paul's response before Felix the governor. God bless you.